They said the marriage was for stability. A fresh start after my business failed. What didn't they say? My parents orchestrated that failure. And the modest man they arranged for me to marry. He's a billionaire who knew everything. And married me anyway. My name is Adriana Thompson. And for most of my life, I believed I knew what my role was meant to be, as the eldest daughter of Raymond and Veronica Thompson, founders of the real estate empire Thompson Enterprises. I was raised to represent our family's brand, graceful, poised, obedient, and always presentable. My parents didn't raise daughters. They groomed successors or assets, depending on what the family needed, and for most of my life, I played my part. I attended the right finishing schools, smiled politely at the right fundraisers, and dated the kind of men who would look good in society pages. I studied fashion design against my parents' wishes and poured my inheritance into opening a boutique. For a brief, glorious moment, I believed I had stepped out of their shadow and created something entirely mine. Then it all collapsed. 6 months after launching, my boutique suffered a catastrophic financial failure. My business partner, Rebecca Collins, vanished with $500,000 in investor funds. Suppliers pulled out. Clients whispered. And the press, particularly the kind that thrived on socialite, schadenfreude, feasted on the narrative. Rich girl tries to play entrepreneur, and fails. The boutique closed within weeks. My parents swept in like saviors, offering solutions and stability in the form of an arranged marriage. They insisted it was old-fashioned but practical, a way to restore my public image, distract the media, and realign my future with their expectations. His name was Mason Parker. They described him as a junior financial consultant at one of their subsidiary firms, modest, intelligent, and grateful. Mother said, someone who will appreciate what we're offering him, and offer you structure and support in return. The wedding was small, controlled, and suffocating. The guest list was curated for optics. The vows were recited under a ceiling of glass chandeliers and thinly veiled tension. I remember Mason's hand in mine, firm but not possessive. His gaze steady but unreadable. We moved into a modest apartment in Boston, far from the opulence I was used to. No staff. No private chef. Just the two of us, navigating an arrangement neither of us had chosen. And yet, from the very beginning, something about Mason didn't add up. He was too calm, too composed. His knowledge of global finance outpaced what any junior consultant should know. The books on his shelf weren't the standard motivational paperbacks you'd expect from a man trying to climb the corporate ladder. They were dense, academic works titles about behavioral economics, game theory, and risk modeling. But I didn't push. Not at first. I was still drowning in shame. My once promising boutique reduced to a punchline. My parents' voices in my head every time I looked in the mirror. We warned you. You needed structure. You're not built for independence. Mason gave me space. He worked long hours. I didn't ask where. At night, he occupied the spare bedroom. We maintained polite, distant strangers under the same roof, bound by legal documents and unspoken expectations. One night, I received a forwarded article from an old friend. Adriana Thompson spotted grocery shopping in Cambridge. Has the heiress fallen this far? I stared at the photo, grainy, zoomed in. Me in sweatpants, carrying reusable bags. They made it sound like a crime. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I simply stood in the hallway outside Mason's closed door and whispered through the wood, I can't breathe in this life. To my surprise, he opened the door. Come in, he said, voice low but steady. Let's talk. It was the first real conversation we had. We spoke for hours, not about the marriage, but about ambition, failure, family, and what it meant to live an authentic life when the world only wanted you to play a role. He didn't offer pity. He offered perspective. Failure isn't the end, he said. Sometimes it's the only honest beginning. His words stayed with me. Over the next few weeks, we developed an uneasy truce morning, coffees shared, articles exchanged, late-night philosophical tangents whispered over cheap wine and flickering candles. He remained guarded, always changing the subject when asked about his past. But something in him softened when I spoke of my dreams. And then one night, everything changed. It began with a phone call. He answered in his home office, unaware that I'd returned early from a walk. His voice was low but authoritative, sharp in a way I'd never heard before. The Singapore acquisition must close before the market opens. Wilson can finalize the numbers. Legal will have the documents in place by morning. I stopped cold. Outside the door. Singapore acquisition. I reached for the doorknob, expecting it to be locked, as always, but this time, it turned. And what I saw inside that room would change everything I thought I knew about my husband, my marriage, and my family. The room I stepped into bore no resemblance to the modest apartment surrounding it. 3 wide monitors glowed with complex financial data. A Bloomberg terminal, a piece of equipment that costs more than most cars, stood in the corner. Shelves lined with leather-bound finance volumes stretched floor to ceiling, and there was Mason, crisp in a tailored shirt and dark slacks, speaking confidently into a headset while manipulating live market data across the screens. The Singapore acquisition must close before the market opens. Have the lawyer finalize the documents. Wilson can handle the press release standard phrasing about strategic growth. He turned and saw me. For a moment, we simply stared at each other, me in faded pajamas, him radiating the calm control of a man who was not a junior financial consultant. "You're not who you say you are," I said, the words flat and brittle. He removed the headset and met my eyes without flinching. "No, I'm not." I sank into the chair he gestured toward, and he opened a drawer, pulling out a business magazine. Without a word, he flipped it open to a bookmarked article. "The Invisible Billionaire, Aurora Investments, Mysterious CEO." It hit me like a punch to the chest. The article detailed Aurora Investments, a global private equity firm renowned for cutting-edge acquisitions and astonishing returns. The CEO had never been photographed publicly, just 2 initials, MPY. Gaze shot back to Mason. "Mason Parker." He nodded. "Founder and CEO of Aurora Investments. Estimated net worth, $4.2 billion. I wanted to laugh, or scream, or run. I didn't do any of those things. Why the deception? I asked instead. Why marry me? Why live like this? He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. Value privacy. I built Aurora from nothing. State college, dorm room algorithms, nights without sleep. But the more successful I became, the more I saw how people changed. Everyone wants something: access, funding, connections. I chose anonymity to keep my world clean, real, and me. I asked, was I part of this clean, private world? He hesitated. I knew of your family. When your father approached me about the marriage arrangement, I saw an opportunity to assess the Thompsons firsthand. Certain business decisions were pending, and I needed clarity, so I was a due diligence experiment. He shook his head. Initially, yes, but then I saw you. Saw you, a woman stripped of title, name, support. Still fighting, still standing. That's when everything changed. Don't romanticize it, I snapped. My trauma isn't your character development. No, he agreed softly. But your strength, it's real, and it revealed something I couldn't ignore. Your business didn't fail because of you, Adriana. It was sabotaged. The room tilted around me. What are you talking about? Mason turned to his keyboard, pulling up files. Rebecca Collins, he said. 3 former aliases. All linked to embezzlement cases. But this time, your mother's foundation donated to a nonprofit tied to Rebecca, 2 weeks before she approached you. That's circumstantial. He shook his head and revealed a second screen: bank records, transfers, email exchanges. Your mother set the trap. Your father helped spring it. Rebecca was a plant. So was the failure. They needed your independence to collapse dramatically. I pressed my palms to my temples. Why would they do that? One word, Mason, said: control. Your boutique was succeeding. You were gaining visibility, networks, and momentum outside their grasp. That threatened the family's power dynamic. So they engineered your failure and positioned me as the solution. I looked at him, then not as the mystery man behind the curtain, but as someone who had been both observer and instrument in my downfall. And you've known this? How long? I confirmed it 3 months ago. Why not tell me? He leaned forward, voice steady but gentle. Because knowledge without power only deepens the wound. You needed to rebuild some of your strength first. Now, you're ready. I sat back, my whole body trembling, but with fury, not fear. So what do I do with this truth? I asked. That, Mason said, depends entirely on you. Revenge, escape, justice, you choose. I want justice, I whispered. And I want my life back, not the one they designed, mine. He nodded once. Then let's begin. The transformation began in earnest. Mason cleared his schedule for 2 weeks. Our modest living room became a war room, walls lined with charts, financial documents, and market analysis. The first task: uncover the full story behind my boutiques. Collapse not my mother's version. The truth. Mason introduced me to Grace Lopez, Aurora's chief strategy officer, and the silver-haired woman I'd seen at our wedding. She'd been quietly observing me since day one. Your boutique had excellent bones, she said after reviewing my business model. With proper investment, it would have been profitable within 18 months. The sabotage was surgical. Precise. We dug deep. Mason showed me how to read financial forensics. Grace assigned me case studies teaching me to spot manipulation, misdirection, and patterns of corporate sabotage. Every skill I gained became a weapon in my arsenal. We traced Rebecca Collins, Network 3, former identities, Rachel Carter, Renee Campbell, Rita Chambers. Each one had left behind shattered startups, stolen funds, and a trail of ruined reputations. This wasn't amateur embezzlement, it was professional infiltration. Even worse, Rebecca had passed vetting only because William Harris, my father's longtime fixer, deliberately cleared her background. We have financial proof, Grace said. Offshore payments from your mother's charity. Transfers from William. It's airtight. The truth hit like stone after stone. They hadn't simply failed to protect me. They orchestrated my destruction. 2 weeks later, I received a call from my mother's assistant. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson request your presence at their 35th wedding anniversary. Formal attire. Seasons Ballroom, 7 p.m. I ended the call, turned to Mason, and smiled for the first time in months. We just received our invitation to the perfect stage. He didn't hesitate. Within hours, his team was in motion, covertly installing audiovisual access to the venue, compiling documents into indisputable presentations, and preparing a digital broadcast that would expose the full truth. I trained, with Grace, in psychological warfare, staying calm, delivering facts, controlling optics. I trained with James Wilson, Aurora's head of security, to recognize gaslighting, deflection, and manipulation. They wanted performance. We would give them one they'd never forget. But first, I had to face someone else, my sister. Kayla. Mason had seen her visiting my old boutique location every month, as if paying respects. We met in a quiet coffee shop. I know what they did to you, Kayla whispered. I found photos of Rebecca under different names in Mother's files. I overheard William fighting with Dad about payment. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared, she admitted. Mother monitors everything. But I've wanted to talk to you for so long. We planned her role, subtle but vital. A neutral witness, a visual anchor of credibility. The night before the gala, Mason and I lay side by side in our shared bed, not arranged spouses anymore, but co-conspirators, partners. He squeezed my hand. Once this begins, there's no going back. You may lose them forever. I never really had them, I said. Not truly. But I have myself now. And I want the truth more than I want their approval. Mason kissed my knuckles and whispered. Then tomorrow, we burned down the lie. The Four Seasons Ballroom had never looked more perfect or more hollow. Mother had orchestrated every detail to radiate controlled elegance. Cascading orchids, crystal chandeliers, monogrammed ice sculptures, and a curated photo exhibition chronicling 35 years of Thompson marital perfection. But all I saw was a stage. A stage for truth. Mason and I arrived precisely 15 minutes late, pulling up in his previously hidden Bentley. The shift in perception was immediate. Whispers fluttered across the room like sparks on dry grass. I wore a deep crimson gown. Architectural and bold, a design created by Olivia Chin, one of the few friends who remained after my so-called failure. It wasn't just a dress. It was armor. Mason, no longer hiding behind generic suits, wore a hand-stitched tuxedo with quiet precision. Not flashy, just undeniable. Mother spotted us first. Her practiced smile faltered as she registered the dress color, our confidence, and Mason's transformed aura. She approached, father in tow, the weight of the room leaning in to watch. Adriana. Mason. Her tone was cool. Striking entrance. Congratulations on 35 years, Mason said smoothly, handing her an envelope. We've donated to the Children's Hospital in your honor. Her brows twitched at the visible $250,000 donation figure in the windowed paper. How generous, she murmured. Father glanced at Mason's tuxedo, watch, and posture. Something shifted behind his eyes. Your consulting gig must pay very well. Raymond, Mason replied, using his first name. Without blinking, I recently took a different position, more aligned with my actual capabilities. We began circulating. At every turn, we met former allies who had abandoned me, and they now struggled to process the elevated reality we carried with us. Mason strategically introduced me to his Aurora executives, posing as guests. Their subtle deference toward me confused and impressed the attendees. The Thompson narrative began unraveling without a word. Then I saw her, Rebecca Collins, laughing with Mother near the bar, dressed in a slick gown, her presence an unmistakable provocation. Mason's security lead, James Wilson, gave me a nod from across the room. I approached. "Rebecca," I said, voice even. "What a surprise." Her smile slipped. Double quotes, "Adriana, I heard you'd stepped back from fashion." "Temporarily," I replied, maintaining eye contact until hers broke. "I've been busy investigating financial patterns in boutique fraud. Fascinating stuff, especially when paired with proper due diligence." Mother inserted herself between us. "Rebecca was just telling me about her latest venture." "I'm sure she has plenty of experience with ventures," I said pleasantly, "and with identities. Though proper background checks do complicate things, don't they?" Mother paled. Rebecca backed away. I returned to Mason. It was nearly time. 10 minutes later. Father's business partner William Harris raised a crystal flute and launched into a sugary toast. To legacy, to family, to integrity. The hypocrisy made me lightheaded. Grace, Olivia, and James met us in a quiet corner to confirm final arrangements. "All systems ready," James said. "The evidence files are primed," Grace added. Across the room, Kayla gave me a subtle nod. Dressed in elegant navy, with rebellious earrings Mother would hate. She moved to stand beside me. "Not with our parents." Then came the cue. Mother approached the microphone, glowing in her ice blue couture, every detail scripted. Her speech was flawless, emotionally modulated, manipulative perfection. "And like any family, we've weathered challenges together," she said, casting a meaningful glance at me. "With proper guidance, even setbacks can realign with our family's core values." She smiled like a queen. "Now, we'd like to invite our daughter, Adriana, to say a few words." The spotlight turned. Scattered applause, a flicker of discomfort, then silence. I stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you, Mother," I began. "Tonight, we celebrate 35 years of partnership. Built, as we've heard, on values: integrity, support, family. Pause. These values were impressed upon me throughout my life, which is why I found it educational to discover what happens when those values conflict with the desire for control." Her smile froze. Father tensed. Kayla moved forward, just a step, in solidarity. "1 year ago, I opened a boutique. The business model was sound. The reception, positive. Then my partner Becca Collins femped at the accounts and vanished." Gasps rippled. Eyes darted to Rebecca. What I didn't know then was that Rebecca wasn't a random grifter. She was planted, recruited, cleared, paid, by people who wanted me to fail. The ballroom screens lit up bank statements, email records, offshore payments from Mother's foundation, documents connecting Rebecca, William Harris, and my parents in a carefully coordinated campaign of sabotage. "This wasn't an accident," I said. "It was a calculated character assassination designed to strip me of independence and credibility. My failure was engineered to justify control." Mother stood. "This is preposterous, is it?" I asked calmly. "Then, perhaps you'd like to explain the foundation's payment dates." The screen changed again. Email correspondence. "William and Rebecca are discussing timing." Father's email let her stumble. "The arranged marriage will stabilize." Perception. Father stumbled to his feet, red-faced. "This public displaced betrayal your heart condition." Mason interjected smoothly. "We've arranged for your cardiologist, who also serves on Aurora's board, to monitor you tonight. You're in good hands." Laughter, uneasy and sharp, scattered around the room. Mother lunged forward, trying to seize the mic. But James was already in place. The presentation continued. Every slide, every lie, exposed. My final words were quiet but unshakable. My business didn't fail because I was incompetent. It failed because my independence was inconvenient. I stand here tonight not to embarrass my parents, but to reclaim my truth. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then building. Mason stepped beside me. "Perhaps now," he said, "you'd like to know who my wife married." The final screen revealed headlines: Aurora Investments founder unmasked. Mason Parker's $68 billion empire, the invisible billionaire, steps into the light. The ballroom erupted. Eleanor Whitfield muttered, "Good God." Others whispered, "Aurora, that's her husband. $4.2 billion. Mason's voice was calm. "I married Adriana because I saw something in her the Thompsons never did. Strength, vision, integrity. My mother looked like glass about to shatter. My father simply sat down." Kayla joined me on stage. No words, just presence. And that was enough. As we exited the ballroom, leaving behind decades of illusion, I whispered to Mason, "This isn't the end." He smiled. "No, this is the beginning." The Sunday after the gala, Boston's social circles buzzed with confusion, awe, and carefully worded denials. Headlines ranged from polite, "Damage control, 35th anniversary gala takes dramatic turn," to the brutal truth, "Thompson family business tied to boutique sabotage scheme. Aurora CEO unveiled at explosive family event." Mason sat at our breakfast table, sipping black coffee, scanning article after article with calm efficiency. "The narrative is splitting," he noted, sorting coverage into folders for Aurora's legal and public relations teams. "Legacy media is trying to protect your parents. Business publications are laser-focused on the evidence." I nodded, reading a fashion blog that called the gala the most glamorous takedown Boston has ever seen. Redemption arc. They called it the boutique designer who wouldn't stay erased. Mason closed his laptop. "They can't control the story anymore. And they COULDN, single quotes T. Within a week. Father's company faced regulatory audits into Williams' financial dealings. Several board members demanded a leadership review. It wasn't a public scandal yet, but in business circles, it might as well have been. Two major charities asked Mother to temporarily step down from their boards to focus on personal matters." Kayla texted. "Dad threw a decanter at the fireplace. Mom's on a rotation of vodka, crying, and damage control speeches. Can we meet?" We met her at a quiet cafe 2 towns over. She arrived wearing a Thompson-approved cardigan over an outfit that no longer fit her. She looked tired and free. "The house is unbearable," she whispered. "I told Mom I wouldn't denounce you." She gave me a 20-minute speech about family loyalty and how I was sacrificing the name. I reached across the table. "You don't owe them anything, Kayla. I know, I just needed to say it out loud." Within days, Mason helped her secure an apartment and, more importantly, a job offer at an architectural firm she'd admired for years. "You're going to be incredible," I told her as she signed her lease. "Feels weird to choose something," she said softly, "instead of being assigned." Meanwhile, Mason and I moved into his actual residence, a penthouse overlooking Boston Harbor. I'd seen it in magazines, unknowingly. Now I was walking across its polished stone floors. "I've owned this place for 5 years, he said, opening French doors to the rooftop garden. "But it always felt empty. Now, it didn't single quotes T. Every room revealed new truths about Mason: the vintage sci-fi novels, the custom cookware, the old photos of his mother cleaning offices. He hadn't just hidden his wealth. He'd hidden himself." "You maintained the deception perfectly," I said, running my fingers along a hand-carved desk. "I perfected professional privacy," he replied, "but personal honesty, that took you." We began building a real life. Not modest anymore, but intentional. We cooked. We argued about tile colors. We read in silence. Love arrived not with fanfare, but with mutual understanding. 3 weeks after the gala, my parents' attorney sent a reconciliation contract. It read like a PR ceasefire agreements, scheduled public appearances, NDAs, about family difficulties, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. I didn't even finish reading it before laughing. "There, still trying to control the narrative," Mason observed. "I'm done with appearances," I replied. "I want the truth, even if it's messy." I declined the contract with one sentence: "I remain open to honest conversation, not conditional performance." With Grace Lopez's mentorship and Mason's strategic support, I began reworking my boutique business model. "You don't need favors," Mason reminded me. "You need funding and accountability. You're building a real company, not a hobby." We brought Olivia Chin on as creative director. She helped design the space, just 3 blocks from the site of my original boutique. We chose it on purpose, a reclamation of ground that had once been forcibly taken. For months after the gala, we opened quietly, with an invite-only event for buyers, editors, and true friends. My parents weren't on the list. Neither was Eleanor Whitfield. The boutique flourished quickly, not because of the press, but because the work was good. Olivia's designs, Grace's operational insight, and my own reawakened instincts created something new and real. I also started therapy twice-weekly sessions with Dr. Harrington, a soft-voiced woman who specialized in family trauma. It wasn't just business sabotage. I told her once it was identity erasure. Yes, she nodded. And now you're writing a new identity. Not a reaction, a choice. Some days I mourned the parents I thought I had. Other days I raged. But slowly, I reclaimed something essential. 6 months after the gala, Mason and I sat on the rooftop during a late spring sunset. About our marriage, he began. I turned. I think we deserve a reset, he said, pulling a small black box from his pocket. Inside was no diamond, just a band of meteorite and gold. This started as a strategy. But I choose it now. I choose you. Not for image, for life. 2 months later, we stood in the same rooftop garden this time, surrounded by 20 true guests. No family posturing, just chosen people. Kayla stood by my side, glowing in her new freedom. Olivia adjusted my gown. Her original design, soft and architectural, modern and timeless. Grace and James Mason's truest confidence held their glasses, misty-eyed. Even my parents came. Late quiet, not in the family seats, but present at the reception. Mother approached. The dress suits you, she said. The ceremony was tasteful. It was the closest thing to approval she'd ever given. Thank you for coming, I replied. That matters. Father didn't say much, but he spoke with Mason about sustainable investment initiatives, surprisingly engaged in actual conversation, not image control. 1 year after the gala, we began a new anniversary tradition, dinner, at the little neighborhood restaurant where our arranged marriage first felt like a partnership. This isn't the life I imagined, I admitted. At best, I hoped for strategic tolerance, Mason said. Instead, I found someone who sees me. So did I. We gave our old apartment to Kayla her first space not curated by our parents. The boutique added a designer incubator program, helping new creators navigate both art and business. My relationship with my parents became something, not quite reconciled, but no longer poisonous, cautious, based on reality, and I no longer saw myself as flawed, or failed, or broken. I was forged. I was free. Sometimes, the very circumstances designed to break us become the foundation for something unshakable. I entered an arranged marriage expecting punishment. What I found instead was partnership. What began as deception evolved into a life built on honesty. My parents tried to humble me, but in doing so, they connected me to the person who saw my true worth, and I reclaimed the story they tried to write for me. Now, I write my own. Have you ever discovered strengths in what felt like your lowest moment? Did someone's attempt to control you lead to your freedom? Share your story in the comments. And if this journey resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, and stay for more stories of transformation, truth, and resilience. Thank you for walking this road with me, Adriana.